On tomorrow, Congressman Jamaal Bowman will find out whether the fight for his political life continues or ends. He'll be facing Westchester County Executive George Latimer to represent the 16th Congressional District in New York. It has been a bitter campaign as Latimer has been supported by significant dollars from Republicans and AIPAC. Bowman has been fighting back charges that he's anti-Semitic, does not support Jews in his district, and on and on and on. They even have been, angry with him because of a profane speech he gave over the weekend.
AIPAC is scared to death. That is why they are spending record amounts of money in this race, because they are afraid they have already lost, because the district, the American people, and the world are with us. They are in this race because we call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And we're going to keep calling for a permanent ceasefire. Ceasefire now! 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 We are not going to stand silent while U.S. tax dollars kills babies and women and children. My opponent supports genocide. My opponent and AIPAC are the ones destroying our democracy. And it is on us, it is on all of us to save our democracy.
Earlier today, I talked with Congressman Bowman about this campaign and the race. Congressman Bowman, money. There's a lot of money being spent in this race opposing you, but the reality is votes always trumpets money. What has your team been focused on when it comes to a ground game, early voting, but also when it comes to election day tomorrow?
You know, from the very beginning, we've been speaking to all registered voters and non-registered voters. We've had a very robust voter registration program up now for several months. And we've been targeting not just the triple prime voters, the voters who vote in every single election, but those who may have never voted in any election, or those who have voted in generals but not primaries. And so we've been targeting them with our phone banks, with our mailers, and most importantly, on the doors. Our volunteer army is about 1,000 strong, over 1,000 strong. We've put a lot of money into paid field as well, because that direct voter connection, there's nothing more powerful than that. And so we've been doing that for several months. We've had over 21,427 conversations, and we're doing very well with those conversations. Now we just got to get people out to vote. That's the number one thing.
So much of this race has been focused on Israel. You made a point in the debate that you don't represent the state of Israel, you represent the South Bronx. And so what have you been hearing on the campaign trail from voters across the district who wants the issue to be focused upon what's happening among the 700,000 people that reside in your congressional district?
Yeah, it's been a consistent tension since I've gotten into office. There's a strong group of primary Democratic voters who are pro-Israel, quote unquote. And Israel is their single most important number one issue. And I do my best to listen to them and to learn from them and to represent them as well. But I also share consistently that the majority of the people in this district care about affordable housing and being able to afford their utilities and jobs and workforce development and violence reduction and public education. And so, it's been a challenging balance to balance the two, but I have to remain focused here on what the majority of the people here want. And I also support the state of Israel and the state of Israel's right to exist, and I support a two-state solution. However, that has also come with, periodic critiques of the Israeli government, particularly as it relates to what's happening right now in Gaza. And so, unfortunately, remember, it was Elliot Hingle here for 30 years before, we won in 2020. And so there haven't been these more well-rounded conversations about Israel-Palestine. They've only been one-sided. So now it's, I guess, jarring to many in the district that we're actually talking about the humanity of Palestinians, which I think is essential for the safety of Israel going forward.
And so, with that, you've got, AIPAC. You are their number one target. You have hit them for the millions of dollars that are being spent. You've got a lot of money that's come from Republican donors who also want to take you out as well. Do you see, and this is not just you, we saw the targeting of Summer Lee in Pittsburgh. You got Cori Bush in St. Louis, Yana Presley in Massachusetts. This is a coordinated effort to go after what some call the squad or very progressive members of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's incredibly alarming and incredibly dangerous to our democracy, because the right-wing Republicans that are funding AIPAC, they also fund initiatives to take away our voting rights, to take away affirmative action, to take away our reproductive rights and other civil rights that we have fought and died for. They support 109 Republicans who voted to overturn the election in 2020. So this is a dangerous move to the right, very aggressive move to the right for the entire country, and is driven by big money Republican billionaires meddling in a Democratic primary, which has now become the most expensive primary in United States history. And so, whether you agree or disagree with me on an issue or two or three, we have to ask ourselves, are we going to allow Republican billionaires to buy a congressional seat from the people? And my hope is that answer is hell no, we're not. And we're going to get to the polls in record numbers to stop that from happening.
On that particular point there, there's no coincidence that the folks I also mentioned are all African American. And so what does that say about the Congressional Black Caucus has the largest block among the Democratic caucus? What does this say? What does this signal to African Americans, this direct targeting of Black lawmakers by AIPAC and by these Republican donors?
It's a reminder of our history, I think. When you look throughout American history, whenever Black or brown people have been outspoken, particularly Black people, we have been targeted. We've been targeted with smearing, with lynching, and everything in between. And so this is just the modern day version of this. We're being targeted politically, not just for our seats, but for our livelihoods. Because the way the smear ads and the attacks have come in this particular race, they're not just thinking about, getting me out of this seat. They're thinking about, post-election, what happens to my life and my career and my family. We've received death threats. My family has been written about. My kids have been written about. This is what's happening. This is what they're doing. And so it's a stark reminder of the reality that we're living in. But it's also, in my opinion, an urgent call to circle the wagons around each other so that we can support and protect and uplift each other and continue to fight and rescue America from itself, because America has always needed Black people to rescue it from itself. And we need that to save our democracy in this moment and to uplift our overall humanity, because we're going down a dark path if we allow elections to be bought. It's already been happening quietly. This is just probably one of the loudest times it's happened in recent memory.
When you look at endorsements, obviously politicians, target endorsements. But when you've got Hillary Clinton supporting your opponent, when you've got former Congressman Mondaire Jones, someone who was a colleague of yours when serving in the Congress before he lost in the last congressional race. Do you put much stock in endorsements? And just your thoughts about that?
It depends. No, I don't put much stock in those two particular endorsements in this particular district. Mr. Jones has never represented this community. And the one time he thought about running in this district, his polling showed him that would not be a good choice. And Secretary Clinton, with all due respect, also doesn't live near or engage this district or community at all. And while, she has been a pillar of Democratic politics in the past, the people here are looking for a vision for the future. And I believe that the people know that vision is represented by people like me and Ayanna Presley and Hakeem Jeffries, who has endorsed us, and Pete Aguilar, who has endorsed us, and Catherine Clark, as well as even older senators like Senator Sanders, who many credit as being one of the inspirations for the squad running for office and winning. I know he was an inspiration of mine. Senator Sanders was, Senator Elizabeth Warren as well. We've also been endorsed by Maxine Waters, who I think is the godmother of all of us as it speaks to racial justice and so many other issues. And so we like our endorsements, and I think our endorsements capture more of the future of the Democratic Party as opposed to my opponent's endorsements.
For folks who don't know, what's the makeup of your district?
So it's a majority minority district. The largest minority is Latino by a few percentage points. My district covers the Northeast Bronx and Southern Westchester County. So Co-op City in the Bronx, Baychester, Edenwald in the Bronx, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, in Westchester, all the way up to White Plains. It includes Portchester, Greenburgh, the river towns, the South Shore, Scarsdale, Ardsley, Tuckahoe, and a few smaller municipalities in the middle.
And so with that, being a majority minority district, elections and primaries comes out to turnout. And so when we look at turnout in primaries, they're not significant. They're not high. So obviously motivated voters are the ones that turn out. How are you really getting your people to understand in the next 36 hours how critically important it is to have minorities in your district really vote their numbers? If they vote their numbers, then it should be a fairly easy election night.
Yes, not easy, but yes, it should be a victorious election night. Everything I've shared on this call and in this conversation, we have shared with the voters. We have told them from the very beginning, this is GOP billionaires trying to buy this congressional seat from you, the people, simply because I call for a ceasefire in Gaza and because I speak up for Black and brown people here, and simply because I don't think we should be sending billions of dollars to Benjamin Netanyahu to engage in collective punishment when those billions could be coming here to help us with the issues we have here on the ground. So we've articulated that from the very beginning in a variety of ways. The key to most campaigns is 7 to 8 quality touches on a voter to get them out to vote. And that's what we've been focused on for several months. And those touches include the phone, the text, the mailers, the doors, and the ads. And so we're hopeful and prayerful that we've done enough to get people out. I could tell you the energy I feel in the community. I mean, I can't jump out my vehicle in Mount Vernon or the Bronx or certain parts of the district without and walk like a step without people like surrounding me with love and support and like frustration and outrage that they're being bombarded with ads and mailers that they know do not represent my record or who I am as a person. So what the other side may have done is piss people off enough in terms of our supporters so that now you got them motivated to vote. That's the energy I'm seeing all throughout the district.
You had a rally and you used some choice language at that rally, and you've had folks like Congressman Richie Torres say this is conduct unbecoming of a member of Congress. Your response?
You know, it's interesting. We're sending bombs and billions to Benjamin Netanyahu to kill babies and women and children, but my language is brought into question. We can't raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, so we keep tens of millions of people in poverty as a result, but you're worried about my language. We got guns as the #1 killer of children in our country for the first time in history, replacing car accidents. And we have a simultaneous mental health crisis amongst our children that we're doing nothing about, but you're worried about my language. To paraphrase James Baldwin, to be Black and someone conscious in America is to live in, subdued outrage, if you will. And so I'm outraged. And every now and then, especially when you're coming after my family and myself and whatever, and, I'm not a career politician. I'm not always going to have the proper decorum, but I guarantee you I will be expressing the emotions of the people who are also outraged, who want to see our government work for them. And so, my apologies to anyone who was offended by my language, but I think we all need to be outraged. What's happening in our world should facilitate a march on Washington every week, because we allowing 1 in 5 children to go to bed hungry. We allow 9 million children across the globe to die every year because they don't have access to clean water. But we spend $1 trillion a year on the military that kills innocent babies and children and women. This is not governance. This is not humanity. We need our humanity back. And if a few choice words is going to lead us to that, then so be it.
Congressman Bowman, last comment. If there's somebody out there watching, listening, they are straddling the fence, they're unsure if they want to vote for you, or they're unsure if they want to vote, period, what do you say to them?
Vote to send a lifelong educator back to Congress, a middle school principal for 10 and a half years, educated for 20 years, who literally has served the community directly my entire adult life. Raised by a single mom, come from the working class, will always fight for marginalized people and will always fight for justice and growth and a vision for America that includes everyone. That's what our country is supposed to be about. That's what we need in Congress. Not someone who is bought and paid for, who calls himself a Democrat, but they're funded by Republican billionaires to engage in pay-to-play status quo politics, who don't agree with Biden on raising taxes on the wealthy, don't agree with universal health care, and don't agree with an urgent response to climate justice. We need the right people in Congress who come from the working class and understand the struggles and dreams of everyday people. And I think I am that person. So please vote June 25th. Do not stay home. Do not sit this one out.
All right. Congressman Jamaal Bowman, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
What you do see happening on the Congo, it is a direct attack, as I question Congressman Bowman, of Black members of Congress by AIPAC. As I said, Congresswoman Summer Lee in Pittsburgh, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, Congresswoman Cori Bush, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. And so, what do you make of this direct attack on them?
First of all, I think it's extremely important that interviews like that happen, that people get an opportunity who are part of this constituency that's being attacked by AIPAC speak out, and that we continue to shine a light on what AIPAC is doing. I mean, AIPAC is a single issue voting organization, and what Representative Bowman and some Representative Lee and others are doing are calling attention to the greater issues within their own community. And then to see people like, Hillary Clinton, insert herself into this, it's extremely problematic. Kind of makes me wish that people like Obama and them would come out and endorse. But really, at the end of the day, this is leading to a particular type of infighting that is counterproductive for the Democratic Party. And that's one. The second issue is that I appreciate the fact that Representative Bowman is talking about all of the love that he's getting in his community, but it has to translate into votes. Every day, Roland, on this show, you talk about the level of sophistication that we need to have as it relates to our politics, as it relates to getting registered, about the importance of making sure that if we get out to protest, we're also getting out to the voting booth, because ultimately that's more important than the protest. So everybody who's showing up at the rallies and so on and so forth, Representative Bowman can win this. I mean, for him to say that this is the most expensive primary in American history, Roland, this race, and we know that there's only going to be more as these other ones get targeted. So it's time that we use this opportunity to expose AIPAC for what it is. It's time that we use this opportunity to encourage our people on the ground to continue to support their grassroots, homegrown candidates. And it's really high time that we continue to show that people who speak for us and our communities are always going to have platforms here and everywhere else. Black Star Network has always been about that, but there are so many other places that need to do the same thing. This is going to help us keep our communities. And just lastly, this whole thing about profanity, are these guys who are talking about his profanity saying anything about Trump? I don't think so.
Nyambi?
Well, I mean, I think this race, but others that you highlighted, signal the real dangers of a group like AIPAC. They're very well funded. And while their general issue around protection of Israel or making sure that Israel and Israeli people are safe, in general, I think most people are like, that's fine. But when you target in particular politicians of color around a single issue, I think it highlights, the limits sometimes of political coalition, because when you look historically, you've seen Jewish people and Black people coalescing together. But here we have what seems like a sort of devolution of that relationship, where you have these particular organizations going after almost exclusively candidates and office holders of color, because they don't like their sort of perspective on this conflict. Not whether Israel has a right to exist, not whether Israel has a right to defend itself, not whether Jewish people should be safe, but don't really want to address these human rights questions, and therefore endanger not just the lives of people of color, but all of us, because the kind of people that they want to get in office because they think they're going to support Israel are not only dangers, right? These issues around Israel are really useful for them because it allows them to push a far right agenda that ultimately makes even Jewish lives less safe. So I think we have to think about this in a sort of multi-level kind of way, and not let AIPAC's single issue sidetrack the rest of us from what the business at hand is.
Julian?
AIPAC is the enemy of Black people. AIPAC is the enemy. None of us disputes the issue of Israel's right to exist, but we dispute the ability of this PAC to go after our people, Summer Lee, now Jamaal Bowman, to spend $14 million trying to unseat this man by a tepid little white man who basically has nothing to bring Black people. We, Black and Jewish people, have had a centuries-long or decades-long alliance, but the alliance has been fraying as Black people have chosen to speak up. And that's what Jamaal has done. He's spoken up. Nobody, I mean, there are 33,000 minimum, last time I checked, Palestinian children who've been killed. Who co-signs that? Who co-signs that? Anybody with a conscience would say, no, enough. So I admire Jamaal Bowman for his sagacity, for his tenacity, for his willingness to say, oh, hell no. The challenge is not around Bowman, it's whether or not his team can get the people out. Where people can get out and vote. Is the Bronx for sale? That's the question that he's asking. And, I think both of my colleagues have raised the question and said, no. I mean, I think Owakongo has really raised the question very appropriately. I think that Nyambi also in terms of talking about what we have in front of us. But the bottom line here is that Israel believes they can buy members of Congress, and they are especially targeted vulnerable Black members of Congress. And we have to push back. We simply have to push back. If they're our allies, they need to stop it. They just need to stop it and let the people choose.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor, having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.
and